I need one too. Thank you. So shall we, can people hear me? I'm on. Am I coming through the PA? So perhaps we could start if anybody has any questions. We'll do some Q&A, and I'll do a little bit of drum and ritual instruction. And then, however long that takes, then we'll do the Ngondro together in Tibetan. And when we do, I'll sit here. But then, for the refuge, I'll take my mic off and do prostrations, and people do prostrations with me. Yeah, I think so, yeah. Angles are good. No questions. Okay. So, drum moves and other skills for Troma practice. First, don't pick anything up. Just hold your hands like this, right? So you always use both hands together. So your elbows, they're not like touching your sides, but they're not splayed out. Your forearms are just hanging straight and comfortable by the side of your chest. You're not doing chicken wings, right? Okay. And then both hands, the left hand is, technically it's in front of your heart, but most of us, it's a little bit off to the side. You have to get to where you can work with the bell. And then the right hand's up here. So you go. See how it's in the wrist? This wrist is going like this, and this wrist is going like that. They move together. If you have trouble moving them together, you can play this game. You can go in both directions. And that'll connect the sides of your brain and your fingers all in one loop. So it's not this is just the wrist moves here. And here, it's mostly the wrist. There's like a little bit of a, like a little push at the end that makes your clapper go clunk. Right? You're holding the drum like this. Okay. So, the first thing is the chant leader, the umze, is going to try to signal you when it's time to start using your drum by lifting his or her drum. But you don't lift. If you see me lift, it doesn't mean you should lift. And also, the very first time when the umze starts, they'll kind of do a little bit of an arc like this. Actually, I did one and not the other. The bell should be there. But they'll do a little bit of an 1, 2. But you don't need to do that arc, and you certainly don't need to go. Right, waving around. It's all in the wrist. People who really do this a lot, there's very little movement. There's very little movement. So at the beginning, as we're about to start, usually the first line is chanted very slowly. And then the pace picks up a little with the rest of it. And everybody joins in at the beginning of the second line. And right as the umze, the chant leader, is about to start, then they'll make a motion like this, and kadunk, and everybody starts together. It's really nice if everybody can be going out together and in together and out together and in together and out together and in together and out together and in together. But if you lose that and you're going out when the umze is going in and you're going in when they're going out, don't worry about it. Just stay on the beat. But eventually when people are really good about this, it's like one, everybody's right there together. You can have 30, 40, 50 people. So let's all just practice that basic beat with the drum. And if you don't have your instruments, I guess, then do we have things that people can borrow if you want to borrow, you can. You don't have to. Oh, also that drum needs to sit in the sun for a very short period of time. If you leave it for too long, then it'll overstretch, and you don't want to do that. It gets a very high-pitched sound if it overstretches. But when it's flat, if in Colorado, if you just leave it to the sun, and unless it's really flat, this side facing the sun for a few minutes, or a half hour at the most, probably here like five minutes even, it'll tighten everything up. Where I come from in Vermont, I use a hairdryer sometimes. But this is good country for chud drums. It's like Tibet. But you want this, I'm a little bit slack. I would like it a little bit tighter, but it's tight enough. I left it on the windowsill this morning. There was no sun, but it tightened up a little bit. You play that? That's flat. Now, if you have a situation where just leaving it in the sun for a short time doesn't tighten it up, then you take a little bit of water, you moisten your hands, and you rub a little bit of water on the flat sides, if it's one side or both sides, and then you put it in the sun for a short time. If you leave it too long in the sun and it over-tightens, it's like overstretching a rubber band, and then later it goes flat. So it'll wear out your drum skin faster. You don't want to overheat it in the sun, over-tighten it. So let's go like this. I see a lot of this. You just want to make it in the wrist. Just the wrist. Don't use your elbow, use your wrist with your left hand. I see everybody freezing, they can't do it. Okay, stop here. Everybody go like this. Everybody go like this. Loosey-goosey. No, not like this. No. Like this. Okay? Feel that? This is the motion. It's here. It's not, and it's not, got it? Loose wrist, loose wrist. And here it's the same thing. It's in the wrist. It's in the wrist. Okay. Not this. Right. You don't necessarily need your pinky on the bell. My bell makes a really loud harmonic, and I've got a microphone there. So if I don't put my pinky down here to dampen it, that's what I'm doing. And I'm making it a little bit more clear and simple for you. If I go like this, it's too much in the mic, right? That's why I'm doing that. But you don't necessarily need your pinky touching. That's a kind of an advanced acoustic trick. Basically, you want your hand to hold the bell like this. And then, loosey-goosey. right? And here, people got that. See, I mean, my forearm's not even moving, really. It'll move a little bit when I actually use the drum, not much. Okay, good. So, a drum break is supposed to be duck, 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 right? You're going. Not. If you, I'm actually, I would give my drum break that I just did a B, not an A. Ideally, as you break, it goes tuck, tuck, tuck. 3 tucks. But sometimes it's a little loose, but it doesn't go. So the next move is called a drum roll. Da-ur. Oh, here, let's see. I should teach. I wrote this. Let's see. I should teach from this. Basic principles. 1, the drum and the bell always move together. 2, keep your elbows near your ribs. Move your arms as little as possible. Most of the movement is in the wrist. 3, the bell is held roughly in front of your heart. 4, generally the drum starts by moving to the outside. There's one melody in the longer version of the Tsok Sadhana where we start by coming in. There's one particular Dharmapala practice. But basically, except for that, we always go out to start. The chant leader, Umze in Tibetan, makes some extra movements with the drum to signal the rest of the assembly, but no one else makes those movements. So the 2 movements you'll see are either this kind of waving thing, like, hey, I'm starting, get ready, get ready. Or lifting the drum. Something's about to happen, right? That means, hey, something's about to happen. So those are signals from the chant leader. The chant leader sings the first line of each section alone and slowly and without the drum and bell. Everyone else joins in at the beginning of the second line and the pace picks up. So for example, if we go to the Guru Yoga on page 10, you do not have to use your instruments with the Guru Yoga. But traditionally, when you're doing your Ngondro, the beginning of starting to learn to use these instruments is the Guru Yoga section of the Ngondro. That's where we start. And if you're someone who just, like, I can't do this. I can't do the drum. I can't do it, so I can't do drum. Well, no, you can do drum. You can do the whole thing without instruments. But the instruments are a wonderful part of it. And so it is good to learn it. So here, I have to give you some pieces before I demonstrate this, the singing the first line. Pay attention to the chant leader and try to follow closely. Everybody's doing this together. It really messes something up when somebody's off on their own trip, singing really loudly out of key. If you're singing out of key, I don't blame you, I do it. But sing a little bit low, like don't yell into the ear of the chant leader. And try not to bang people next to you. That's when we go like this, right? Usually when we're gathered doing the Tsok in Asia, that line of 4 people would have 10 people in it. So, what else? You just try to follow. You try to stay in key, in tune, in melody with the chant leader. And if the chant leader has a really low voice and you have a high voice, You can sing, a fifth up or an octave up and harmonize with it and take your high. The women's high voices and the men's low voices together actually sound really good with this. Or vice versa, if the chant leader has a very high voice and you have to go low. Generally speaking, if we're singing all day, most of us do better with a low voice. Unless you got a really strong voice or a natural soprano, falsetto kind of voice. If you're going to be chanting for hours and hours, half a day, a whole day, usually you keep it low and you keep your breath in your chest and you keep your voice low. So, before I demonstrate the Guru Yoga and how the chant leader does it, let's go back to drum moves. The 5 basic drum moves are, first, a drum roll, which is called Da-ur. Just watch me. Da-ur, drum roll. It's not quite symmetrical, right? Ka-tunk, 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 ka-tunk. So the inside and the outside sound a little different. So even if you're out of sync going like this, it doesn't really matter. But whenever we come to this section where there's a drum roll, you listen and you kind of sink in to the chant leader. And that drum roll will go anywhere for 10, 15, 18 times, depending on what we're doing, if there's a horn or each chant leader has their way of counting those out. But there'll be some time for everybody to sink in, and by the end, everybody's going ka-tunk, 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 together, and it sounds really good if you're together. The drum break, da-chet, I've shown you. There's also something called the double break. 2 breaks, and that was not clean. Let's do that again. That was cleaner, right? That's a double break, Nietzsche. Now, the quintessential move is called the set down. Shakt up, set down. So for the set down, you're going from your regular rhythm, and then you go into a drum roll. So you're doing your regular rhythm, and then you go into a drum roll. Ka-tung, 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 ka-tung. And then you'll see the chant leader raise their hand and go break. You do a drum break. And then you count starting to the inside. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and on 7, you do a krunk break and another break, krunk, a double break. That combination is called the set down. It signals that we're setting down the drum and the bell and the instruments in the ritual. So here's what it sounds like. It's a drum roll with a break and starting on the inside and counting, and on the 7th doing a double break. Sorry, I blew it. Here, let's start again. Drum roll. Three, 4, 5, 6, 7. Got it? And then there's a half set down, which means instead of doing a double break at the end, you just do a single break. So the half set down is half set down is you go into the drum roll. When you speed up in the drum roll, it's natural, but the bell is going on the in beat, right? Normally your bell goes with each beat. And as you speed up into the drum roll, you're going faster. You'll hear it. It doesn't go every time. So with a half set down, you're into the drum roll. Break. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, karunk. And that's it. And of course, you won't go up, right? You'll just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, karunk. It's a half set down, and if it's a second karunk, it's a full set down. Should we do a set down together?
Hey John, how many, when you started, I counted like 25.
In a drum roll? You're counting both beats. I was counting the in beat only, and I did like 12.
What's normal?
It depends. Generally speaking, most of the breaks where there's instruments or things happening, you'll go 15 to 18. It's up to the chant leader. It's sometimes a little shorter if there's nothing going on, no horn, or if you're moving into a set down, there's no prescribed number of bumps. A lot of times you're listening. If there's a large assembly, it takes a little time for everybody to sink in on the drum roll and get the in beat together. And so the chant leader will wait till everybody's together and then come down with the set down. Okay. Shall we do a set down together? We'll start like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And now go into a drum roll. Pretty good, pretty good. Yeah, this does hit every time. And I noticed some of you, you're really, when you go into the drum roll, if you're doing this thing, it gets pretty frenetic. I saw some hands waving like this, right? But if you've really got it in the wrist, then when you speed up, your hand doesn't have to move at all. It's very easy. You can ka-dun, 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 ka-dun. So you really want to be in the wrist, not the forearm. There's some fancy drum moves. The dagyang. So various combinations of duck, 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 duck. That's called the drum jump, a dagyang. And then the offering to Rahula in the mid-length, we start to the inside. Everything else starts to the outside. And then at the very end, we do a triple drum roll at the very end of the Tsok Puja. I don't need to demonstrate that now. Do people want to practice together, or should we just let me demonstrate how this is put together with the first section of the Guru Yoga. So, on page 10, what's going to happen? Oh, there's more instruments. I need to tell you about the horn. Is that on the back? Using the trumpet. So in the old days, in Tibet, Depending on what mantra, Om Ahum Pudza Ho Ka 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 Hi, whatever mantra is it, each section, offerings, praises, or invocation, various sections of the elaborate feast ritual, then you would blow the horn differently. It's almost like a language from the horn. It's quite difficult to do. And Dudjom Rinpoche simplified it. So it's basically Om Ah Om. Simple. I haven't blown this yet today. Sometimes you put water in it, it helps.
When you see the monasteries with the big horns, are they, when they blow the horns, are they going ahum up
The
there?
big ritual instruments, no, I actually never studied that stuff.
But you see the...
You mean the big horns?
Yeah, the big horns you see at the top of the monasteries.
They have their own sets of rhythms and stuff, and I'm not sure if it's based on the mantras. I don't think it is, actually. There's a whole way of notating the rhythms for the symbols, and for the wrathful and peaceful symbols, it's a little different. There's that kind of like a language. I never quite learned that. And also for the different instruments. But troma is nice. You do it yourself or you do it with 100 people. It's the same set of ritual instruments, the same ritual. Many of these practices, if you've been to the monasteries over in Asia, like Vajrakalaya or Vajrasattva, so many, this kind of horn and that kind of horn and the different drums, and everybody has to learn all this different. It's very complicated. It's very difficult, and then you need a lot of people to really get the whole thing going. So, at the beginning of the Guru Yoga, we do a drum roll. And during the drum roll, we do 3 horns. And then there's a break. Dum. Actually, the break comes on the pai. When the chant leader says pai, we all break. Now, when you're doing your practice yourself, you're saying the pet. But generally, when we have a whole assembly together, it's only the presiding Lama who says the pet. Was Dudjom Rinpoche's tradition. In the old days in Tibet, actually everybody would say the pet. But Dudjom Rinpoche just the presiding Lama says the pet. But when you're alone practicing, you'll say the pet yourself. So the chant leader, then at that last drum break goes poi, and then chants the first line very slowly, and then picks up with the drum at the beginning of the second line. So this is what it's like. 진보 대진보 규매 대진 감수 란리기 시조 마마세세 자이디 고연대 조다. And this melody will go all the way through to the bottom of page 11, and at roll, you just, without breaking, you go into another drum roll and another 3 horns, and then with the hung, there's a break, and then the chant leader chants the first line, and everybody joins in at the second line again. And that's how all the breaks and sections basically work. That's the basic system. At Guru Hari Nisa, there's just a drum break. Usually what I do is, 1 Guru Hari Nisa with the drum embedded, or sometimes I do 3. Usually the melody goes into 1. Sometimes if we're digging it, I do 3. So. Any questions?
So when do we get the recording of what it's supposed to sound like?
Actually, we've got me recorded. We should release that. I was really bad. Mike edited it, and I never gave him the last edit. And we do. We're going to have a nun with a beautiful voice, Tibetan nun, at some point relatively soon doing it. But me and Mike are going to do something over the net. Make sure you get what I did last year. The problem is I did it on version 2.0.
Right, I remember, but it's better than having nothing.
Yeah, right. But we're doing it today. But yeah, thank you. Oh yeah, we'll have today recorded. I don't know how long it's going to take Mike to. Oh, you could go back over what we're about to do when we do the practice together on YouTube. Yeah.
On the break, is it out or in first? On the break.
I don't know. I think it's in, but let me see. Whatever I just did. I cocked it out, and then I went, cut up. You start out, and there's a snap in. Your snap in. Thank you. I never thought of that. There's a snap in. Karak. Karak. You start out and you snap in. Let's practice. You want to practice with a melody? The whole Guru Yoga? Okay. So, no. Never separate left and right. This is skillful means. This is wisdom. They're inseparable, just like the 3 bodies of the Dakini. This is the space of Dorji Yingshuma, Vajravatishvari, and this is the 5-fold primal knowing. You can't separate these 2. 2 hands. And it's good if you learn, nobody's got a horn. Okay, much easier. It's good if you can learn to grab the horn like this without setting your bell down. It's much smoother and without making too much of a racket with your bell. Lama Lagyu min tro nu pa ching che so zon la o yon Guru Hari ni sa si di hon Guru Hari ni sa si di hon Guru Hari ni sa si di. So I'm seeing a lot of arms going like, going like, seeing a lot of left arms going like, like this, or like this, or like this, right? I'm not seeing your wrist. I want to see your wrist, okay? Yeah. And I'm seeing some people like frozen because they can't move the wrist. Yeah.
There's one question about if you're doing accumulations. When you get to Guru Hari Siddhi Hum, you just stop the bell and drum and just
Yeah.
do the rosaries, and then when you pick it up.
That's it. That's the only music in the Ngondro. The aspiration prayer, there's no music.
Okay.
And then there's a melody with the dedication. Yeah. The taking the 4 empowerments. But there's no instrumentation to that. So, let's everybody move their wrists. Right? It's like waving. Hi. So, your arm is like in this position, not moving. Once you get it, at the beginning, I used to do the same thing. It feels easier at the beginning. It's scary not to just do it with the wrist somehow. But once you get it with the wrist, it's so easy. And then you can control the speed really easily. Think how much more control you have over this than you have over this. Okay. So, what do people want to work on with this? Is that enough of playing with our drums? Well, why don't we do the whole Ngondro and we'll use the music with that section. There's no music, excuse me?
Pronunciation and rhythm of the 3 Dakini section.
There's no rhythm, there's no melody for the 3 Dakinis. The only melody in the Ngondro is the Guru Yoga. And this is the same melody as the prayer before the feast called entering the city of the 3 Vajras, or entering the abode of the 3 Vajras. There's a prayer that you'll do. I've translated now the short feast myself into a pretty good draft version. By the time I come back here, it'll be clean like this. So I won't beat you over the head with multiple versions on that one. I've worked the terminology out with this one. So should we just do the Ngondro in Tibetan? Do you want to do the Guru Yoga one more time like that? Let's just do the Ngondro in Tibetan. It's 2:50. Do people need a break first? 5-minute break?
Excuse me, John. Could I remind people to speak in the mic if you have questions? We're getting a number of people letting me know they don't hear the questions. So just take the extra time.
Okay. So I think we're going to take just a 5-minute break, and when we come back, we'll do our Ngondro together. And then it's pick John's brain time. I mean, I could think of all kinds of things to teach you, in the time we have left today, but you've got me here in front of you to ask questions, right? So whatever would be helpful to you, whatever you don't get, no question is too confused or embarrassing. So let's take 5 minutes. Quick break, just whoever needs a break. Go like this. Hands up. Now go like this. Right hand's holding the drum, left hand. It's not like this, okay? Straighten your wrist a little. No, I mean not like this, but like this. Yeah. Now, boom, 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 boom. Try your fingers. See if opening your fingers helps. You get that little. Snap, 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 snap. Yeah. You got to find a way to restrain your forearm. And I notice a lot of people, they hold the bell down like this. You're going to have any control in your wrist when your wrist is broken down like that. So your wrist needs to be a little bit more straight, right? Your wrist is not like this. How do you have any control? Your wrist is more straight. So you can drop your forearm and not make it so much of an angle. And then you have more control, right? At the beginning, you're going to double ding a little bit. And then you get the feel of it. And every bell has a different feel. It's like riding a different horse or a different tennis racket or whatever it is. And if your bell is double dinging, it could also mean you need to adjust the string so that the clapper is a different length and hits at a different height. If it's too long, it may double ding. You may need to slightly shorten it.
Switch directions on the mala, like if you do one complete rosary.
That's the tradition.
Okay.
Is that you don't cross over the guru, you don't step over the guru. So, and it helps you count, right? So like here on this rosary, I have
Counters.
I just have a vajra, right? Usually I have a vajra on one side and a bell on the other side. So my hand automatically knows to switch over. So if you kind of lose the count, you see which direction you're going, whether you're passing the vajra or the bell. And sometimes if you missed one, you pick it up on the next count, right? So like this will be my ones and that'll be my tens with the bell over there. And you just sort of come around and twist.
But when you're going between, like if you're not doing it, I'm not there yet because I have like 85,000 questions. So, but I'm getting close to the mandala. So then I'll have to start the track of directions, right?
Yeah, and you probably want some teaching on how to do the mandala, which if I'm around, I'm happy to do it. If not, Jim's done it.
Okay.
For 2 Ngondros, he knows how to do it.
Okay.
And that's a little bit of a trick, is holding the mandala plate on here, when you have like a cloth, and you can either use semi-precious stones or really nice rice or something that you change, and you're making the heaps, and it's a lot of things in your hand. Yeah, it's a little bit of a physical challenge.
Where do I get the plate?
You can buy them for exorbitant prices from various Dharma Center stores, or just like go to an Indian grocery store.
Okay.
And the thalis they have, get a small stainless steel thali. And it's also much lighter than the other ones, than a heavy silver plate. And just visualize it as beautiful, precious materials.
It works.
Yeah, you're welcome. Should we use the microphone? Are we back online, or we've been online? Okay.
Hey, John, if somebody asks a question and they...
I should repeat it. Okay, so the question was, it's really hard to slow it down. It just, you have to get used to it. It is hard to slow it down. And one of the things, if you slow it down, one of the tricks is then you start moving your arm, right? If you pivot at the elbow, there's more distance. So I'm going like this. It's a little bit easier to slow it down. But you can also there's a little bit when you slow down, you have to do a little snap at the end. You go slow, but you do a little snap at each end to get the clappers to clap. This takes time. It won't happen instantly. It takes a few years, actually, to get really good with the drum. You have to do this a lot. Yeah, I mean, because imagine you're reading and you're visualizing. That's what's great about this practice, though, is after you get it all loaded in, it's the mother of all practices. It really is. You know, you've got these amazing melodies that have profound meaning, and and when you do the wandering practice in the mountains, I mean, you go alone in the mountains and you do this dance. It's kind of like a drunk Indian heading into a cowboy bar and saying obscene things about rednecks. You go alone to a terrifying place, and you do this very aggressive practice to stir up all the local energies and spirits. And then when you get to the place where you're going to camp, there's a dance of suppression. There's a series of things you do. You know, you really provoke the local spirits. You visualize violently summoning them and body slamming them and jumping on top of them, and all the dakinis together doing a dance on top of them as you're singing this. I'm the Vajra hero with unshakable confidence, treading on the Rudra, the emanation, the embodiment of dualistic ego. And then you sit there, and you challenge them. You say, "Come, eat my flesh, suck my blood. I'm not moving. I'm going to stay here." And you need to visualize throwing them all into your seat and like this, and they go, "Ee-wah!" And you go like this, and you go, "Hey, I'm not." I forget the words exactly. These words in Tibet. I swear on the 3 jewels, I'm not moving. I'm not going to move from here. I'm staying here. I'm sleeping here. And then you meditate. And then you offer the feast and visualize ejecting your consciousness and dismembering and multiplying your body into offerings for the spirits. And then you meditate. And it's supposed to provoke you. Things will happen. And you have to keep meditating. So you want to have a meditation to be challenged before you do that. Many people went crazy in Tibet trying to do that before they were ready. So there's a series of retreats. You do the Ngondro, and then there's a creation stage retreat with a mantra practice. And then if you want to do that and you really seem ready, I'll teach you how. But it's not the only way. In the recent generation or two in India, very few people do that. The only lamas I know who did that, who I learned how to do this from, did it in Tibet. And there's some people in Western Nepal, I think, who still do it. But most of Dudjom Rinpoche's disciples, they did a retreat to simulate that. And so you don't absolutely have to do that. But that's what the feasts are about, the 4 feasts. And then we have really extraordinary teachings on Tugel. This is the innermost secret practices of Dzogchen in the Troma tradition. But it's held very strictly. These days, it used to be you didn't even mention, and now people are writing books about it, and everybody wants to do. You can't do it until you can do Treksha. It doesn't work. And in our lineage, still with the Troma, I don't know, it's been kept very secret, very tight. It's very blessed. But you can't even get those teachings unless you're going to do a 6-month retreat. First you do the Ngondro, then you do the creation stage retreat, and if you're going to wander, you wander, or you do a retreat to substitute the wandering. And then there's this amazing 6-month closed Togyo retreat we have in the Troma. And many rainbow bodies in the lineage. Many rainbow bodies. And many, many great practitioners who showed extraordinary signs. So if you're thinking, I'm not about to take a backpack, you could take an SUV. I know someone who just did it, who took a mountain bike. But even if you're not going to do that, you can do the closed retreats and work through that whole curriculum. Or you can just do this and just do Treksha. And you can put an end to samsara. It's great because everything is here. But if you really, you want all that stuff, it's all connected with the Troma cycle. It's all there. And the 4 feasts, you don't have to be wandering in the wilderness to do them. You can do the 4 feasts, the offering of the body can be done in a little bit less challenging and provocative way in the comfort of your own home. You don't do the dance and you don't do the call them out quite as aggressively. You wouldn't want to stir up the energy. And when you do that someplace, there's a whole ritual to heal the place when you leave, to heal the place and heal the local spirits after you've done this. If you do it and you get the signs, you can't do it again. It's part of the samaya. Because it's like, beating up, being a bully, beating up on the local spirits. And there's a practice every place you go. Then when you're done the next morning, there's a practice for breaking your camp, breaking your tent, healing the place, creating a Buddha mandala for the local spirits, and then sealing the energy behind you as you go so you don't bring it with you. So when we do the 4 feasts in our own home, we don't do a lot of that stuff. But it's still a very powerful practice, and it's all really connected with the Dzogchen view. So that's something eventually we can get to. And each of the feasts has its own melody, and even there's several melodies in the short version of the Tsok, and then there's more in the midnight. There's a lot of stuff that you could learn with Troma. It's out there if you're into it, and eventually we'll have more and more going here. It'll be easier. But the main thing for now is to do the Ngondro. Once you do the Ngondro, when you do these other practices, it's really meaningful, right? I know a lot of people, she's really sexy. People are into Troma. People, Tibetans, Bhutanese, people want to do the ritual. People love the sound of the drums and the music, and it's captivating. The melodies are really blessed. And so in Asia, you see lots of people doing Troma, but you don't see a lot of people really doing the Ngondro, doing the retreats. People love to get together on the 10th and 25th days and do the Tsok. And it is wonderful. Or people love to do a little bit of the 4 feasts. The 4 feasts, there's one pre-dawn, and there's one, the Black Feast, which is either done at midnight or 3 in the morning. The Dawn Feast, the White Feast around dawn. The Variegated Feast at midday, and the Red Feast at dusk. And then there's some other special feasts, but those are the 4 main feasts you can do from the tradition of Chud. And so people love to do that, and some people will do a feast at home without doing the rest of the Troma. And if you had the empowerment, you could do it. It's nice. But in our tradition, it's not, this is wonderful and inspiring, but it's really about making it a support for your practice. All of this is like cross-training for your meditation practice. The main practice of Dzogchen is called Trek Chud, cutting through. Chud, it's the same chud for the chud practice, cutting. All these books now, they're translating it as severance, but that sounds so academic and clean. It's not a clean word, chud, it means cut. Cut attachment, cut fixation, cut the ego at its root. And that's really what your meditation is about, whether it's the Prajnaparamita Sutras, right? No nose, no eyes, no ears, no smell, no taste, no form, no feeling, no perception, no formation, no consciousness. Cutting that. So this actually arises out of the Prajnaparamita tradition, the tradition of Chud with Aryadeva. And then Machik created this tradition in Tibet. It's one of the few Dharma traditions that didn't come from India to Tibet, the tantric version of the Chud. And in Dudjom Lingpa's Terma, he met Machik. He was blessed by Machik. But it came through pure visions of Saraha mostly. There's many different lineages of Chud, but this is a very special lineage, and it's an incredibly extensive cycle of teachings. So as we go on, and you learn some of the melodies and get used to the drum, and if you're really doing a regular practice with your Ngondro and your meditation, that's the main practice. But then as you feel like you want more, there's lots. But if I dumped it all on you at once, some of you might like it, but it's also easy to miss the point. This is where the rubber meets the road. It's really doing a Ngondro and working with the Ngondro. And this is a lot. This is not an easy practice. And it's also not an easy practice. Expect to be challenged. You start doing this every day and doing accumulations, doing prostrations. Expect your stuff to come up. That's the whole system of Chud, cutting, is to provoke upheavals. So it's sort of like you're picking a fight with your neurosis. The demons is just a projection of your own dualistic fixation. And so it's going to come up in your face. You have to let go. You have to cut it. You go to the view. You go to your practice and cut it. But first you need a foundation. You need to do some Ngondro to the point where you can really start to connect with the meditation teachings and have some confidence in your experience. And then the rest of these, I'm not saying have realization, but just have some little bit of confidence about what you're doing. Real confidence, not phony confidence. You know, some taste. And then there's so many other practices that are enhancements to that main practice. It's an extraordinary cycle of teachings, extraordinary and extraordinarily blessed. So we better do our Ngondro, right? I better stop talking. I'm sorry. So we're going to do this in Tibetan. Does anybody have any questions about the visualizations or what we're doing before we start? You all know what you're doing? Okay. Here, before we start a session of practice, sit straight. And let's clear the stale breath. Okay. Geldan gelse malu dube jel kelden duce shegu minze chin korwa nyangde longtro tungawe rikun kyabda lama de kino Deljor dembe milu rinchen to Somon leje zambo gyude ke Yang yang neka udam waratra Tamche kiembe gopang nyudro sho Chinu jigden mita jigjane Nangchu semchen kechi tsongdu tim Loda jatu gargi namgyur jin Mita chiwa jempar lama kim Zume dunge drabu timundu Tangchik dewe kapme nyamtak ching Tame leki pelkar numbewe Korwe tsole droshi lama kim Karna legi namin miluwar Pakchak dedo nyewar lembe sem Gyudan drebur chube kembordu Lume tengi gombo lama kim I'm going to do prostrations now. And if you want, you can do prostrations with me. The array of infinite world systems is the outer universe. Poi tonzon rabjan kuba chiu ranlu kuba rabzo nangi pe ranan hundo kuba sangwe de so ni zochir gyawa nam labu tongsun rabjan kuba chiu Ranglu kupa rabzo nangi pe Rangnang hundro kupa sangwe de Zogni zogchir gyawa nam labu Tongsun rabjam kupa chi yu Ranglu kupa rabzo nangi pe Rangnang hundro kupa sangwe de So ni zo chir gyawa nam la bu. Hoi kusum gelwa namla chazelo ludan lunju tamche chuvam gosum niepe tipso tolosh namkar getso kunla jeira gangla gangdo chukur korwaku gyana nangen mida jukso de Dagi getsa drowa yonglango malu chamchi sange sa top sho. Hoi ke jigi namwa tamje milam yingsu sepa tar jingam nampa dabe uso macha pema dabge nide denla Ranye droma namo ye chi cha ni ye tigo danyun tuta namba. Jabni gartab zebe chiwor pakshel nabo gendu ngurwa. Durtro chege gi gempa shindu trope nyamdan demba. Yeshi gi mebon rabdu barwe longdu jukpe. Togar nide gao kajur gi nangdu yiki hung tingna gitar. Naki tengwe korwe uzir gi dun nedun tiktip doche gi pumpo danche pa tamche pamola nizir popa tar sangi dabar gyur de chiwo longo dorje pamo marze ditu che Shabni pede den la garta gyurwa yeshe medan obun rabdu tipe longdu kiedo De chiwo chuku yinki yumchen kuntu zamo tingna chirbu. Dorje kyochongi jukshin chani sanun zepa yeshi utik dumbu tingsergi longdu. Kiedo. Rigi damo chuki kudan longu nigi tukar ayik dam bamyek karmar sewala yang. Ngagi tengwe korwe uzirgi daktan semshen tamche ki gu jangne uzel kada ki kurse par gyu. Om benze kuri kali bamar nise sa obam shandan kurus. Om benze kuri kali. Om benze kuri kali bamar nise sa. Om benze kuri kali bamar nise sa obam shantim kuri so. Rida durje pamu tuke ngaden le uzir kado ngaden jodan demba. Wilgi june danye chome tukar timbe uki tigle karpur gyrne. Longu yeshegi kandro me tukar timbe. Rangi durje pamo tukar pam marbo tar. Ngagi tengwe uzirgi kamsum ki bakchagle. Nenyun tamche sangi dane kamsum tabe shingdan langa chuni giro par gyur. Om benzo wari bamar nizis obams. Om benzo wari bamar nizis om benzo wari bamar nizis om benzo wari bamar nizis obam shantum benzo wari bamar nizis om benzo wari bamar nizis Om benzo wari bamar nizis obam shantum kuriye so rida kundo zambu tuge ngade le uzi tube dada nawa damji jugi yingi rangjin du shi par gyu om benzo wari bamar nizis 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 obam shantim kuriye so Yom kundu zamu tu gani yoje ting na trube. Danyi dorje pamu tu gar timbe margi ngombu shikdu girne chugu yeshigi kandro me tu gar timbe. Danyi kundu zamu tu gar aye karpu tar ngaki tenwe ozegi. Korwa nyangde chimbu longdu shishin gyawa tamze. Yeshiki yin suro chikbe danyi chendu. Gyom benzo samanta badrom dharmakaya samadhi siddhyao. Om benzo samanta badrom dharmakaya samadhi siddhyao. Om benzo samanta Om benzo samanta badrom dharmakaya samadhi siddhyao. Om benzo samanta badrom dharmakaya samadhi siddhyao. Om benzo samanta. Om benzo samanta badrom dharmakaya samadhi siddhyao. Om benzo samanta badrom dharmakaya samadhi siddhyao. Om benzo samanta badrom dharmakaya samadhi siddhyao. 줄린 내기 조교 민주인의 교송 라마 용도림보지 가주와 문화로 가주기 교진 징기라 질식소소 나규민조는 바징기 데메제수소 나오용스 구루하리니 사시리 구루하리니 사시리 옹거리니 사시리 옹거리니 구루하리니 사시리 옹거리니 사시리 옹거리니 사시리 옹거리니 사시리 옹거리니 사시리 구루하리니 사시리 옹거리니 구루하리니 사시리 옹거리니 사시리 옹거리니 사시리 옹거리니 사시리 옹거리니 구루하리니 사시리 옹거리니 사시리 옹거리니 사시리 옹거리니 사시리 옹거리니 사시리 홀 두숨 상게 용도 다니 베카딘 코르메 라마 림보지 캬브다 콜로 왕조 돌제진 켄세 누베 페윤 조베tir Kedro sile drowe paoche kadin yunten dembe muguki sowa devso tukje chengizi yingle gomba kyula jegi cho dusum gyunje mepar kense gong dagi lutan longchu getsar che Chagzin Jemba Dewe Kielabdu Gosum Mugu Dongsho Trapui Tengi Gombo Kiela Tenchao Kyabne Lume Kiela Kyabchi Shin Tongtu Denrek Namden Tepun La Dusum Pogyur Mepe Tegu Ki Chakse nangsi loe langte pul. Nyetung kuncha gela jairang. Taktu chukor korjing jukspar so. Drokam gyatso dongne drogyur che. Solwa debso lama rembo che. Tugje zungshi yeje kanro ma. Chingi lobshi drowe gombo cho. Del jor dundan dembar jingi lo. Chiwa ningne dembar jingi lo. Langdor nela kiebar jingi lo. Korwa jemba lobar jingi lo. Gome gyula kiewar jingi lo. Zome rangyu tulwar jingi lo. Chame gyula tembar jingi lo. Drome lo de dembar jingi lo. Ngeme ngendro zimbar jingi lo. Charme ritu tubar jingi lo. Chume chunsu zimbar jingi lo. Gyurme mugu tembar jingi lo. Nyame ngejung kewar jingi lo. Deme lama dembar jingi lo. Jome Ngondro tobar jingi lo. Jime dingjen tobar jingi lo. Nangwa denme tobar jingi lo. Dame shirab tobar jingi lo. Yume zangtel tonwar jingi lo. Trulme tsensa zinbar jingi lo. Yeme koryo debar jingi lo. Gome dzogchen tobar jingi lo. Chume nelu rangji jedong ne. Kuji da nid perdu ding tob sho. Hoi, pa, hoi. Palamadu sum sangyekin. Boilo tan sai di bajong. Kubumbe wangira mini. Lutro be guru. Gyodo so. Tanamin rigzin ala la poi poi. Palamadusum sangyekin. Buinga talungi tibajom. Son sanwe wangi min trote. Ngalong chuzoku jingilo. Tadze wan rigzin ala la. Hoi hoi. Palamadusum sangyekin. Bui dang tigle di bajong. Dojira wangi min trone. Sim chuki guru jingilo. Tajagi rigzin ala la. Hoi hoi. Palamadusum sangyekin. Buitini bacha jang du so. Dunzi wan jembu min drone. Long ko ji bedu oyoingzu. Dalundu rigzin ala la. Hoi hoi. Palame gongyu long chimbu. Ding na nambar. Dai lai tim. Shizoba jimbu long du se. Jikada ngantu nimero. Nga shunu bungu chang chubo da ko de da nyam ai lai lai hoi pa hoi. Just take a deep breath, completely relax. Hoi da gi do sun ge za gun ro gun sang ge do ji ngo kam sun sim chin ma lu ba cham ji zo zang ye gyu chi kon cho sung gi dem ba dang ko zum gan ro jin la ki tak cha ko dam che ba la pe yum pun so ta shi sho. So, you now have on your YouTube link 2 melodies. That last melody that we did, the dedication and auspicious wish, is called the praises melody. But it's also the melody that's the main melody for the whole concise Tsok feast, the whole concise feast. The mid-length, which is really the long one, but it's called the mid-length, has more than a dozen different melodies to learn. So next time I come back, I'm going to start you guys on the concise feast, which when we do it in Tibetan and English will take us a solid 5 hours. And if we linger a little more. And basically, if you know now, you know the Guru Yoga melody, and you know the praises melody. And Mike, I think you have a pretty well edited version of me last year, right? So if you want to hear, or anybody else wants to hear me doing this at speed in Tibetan, we'll get you that link with this other stuff. I went slow, and I tried to enunciate clearly so you could go over this. But actually, if you know someone's doing their practice in Tibetan, it's much more quick. It's not as slow as that. And I think with language, I don't think there's one right way to deal with this English or Tibetan question. I really don't. This practice is so blessed because it's the self-arisen speech of the Dharmakaya expressed through Dudjom Lingpa. It's just, so the symbolic form of the Tibetan sounds and letters, even that carries an energy. The melodies, Dudjom Lingpa heard them from the Dakinis. And so there's great care that goes into learning these melodies. And you'll see variations in different lineages. Dudjom Lingpa had 8 sons and many other major lineage holders. And in the old days in Kham, Eastern Tibet, there was no tape recording or anything. They had a system of notation, which you can still see in the text. And so it all diverged a little bit. But it's basically the same. People have different voices. You know, we're not going to sound like Tibetans. I don't sound like a Tibetan. I may to you, and on a good day, almost to some Tibetans. But later we'll get you a tape of a nun who's really expert at this. She's a beautiful voice. And a woman's voice is better for this. A man's voice is okay for this, but this is the woman's voice is really good for this melody. And so, you have questions there? Okay, in a sec. Where's I going with that? Yeah, the Tibetan's blessed. The melodies are blessed. Later, Dudjom Rinpoche, the reincarnation of Dudjom Lingpa, Jigdo Yeshe Dorje, who's up there, he sort of consolidated things based on the different traditions that were going on in Tibet. And some of those Tibetan versions still exist. But we're in his lineage, and most people now, he made it a little bit simpler. The melodies were longer than this, actually, and more complicated. And there's actually a long version of the Troma that's hardly done now. What we consider the long one is the mid-length one. And it's almost like they knew. They needed, you know, plan A, plan B, plan C. But these teachings are really, it doesn't matter you do long or short, it's very powerful. So there's a power to the Tibetan. You want to learn the Tibetan, you don't want to give it up. But you need to understand, the English is important. Generally what I tell people is, you need both languages. If you prefer one language, but anyway, once a week you do your Ngondro in the other one, or do both together. Each language should go at least once a week. And if you're doing your accumulations, like you're doing your prostrations with the refuge and the bodhicitta, it's okay to count in either Tibetan or English. The Tibetan goes much faster than the English for counting. But every 100, if you're doing it in Tibetan, every 100 do one English. If you're doing it in English, every 100 do one Tibetan. And if you haven't done this so far, that's okay. But this is my suggestion because I think it's important for us to hear it in English. It's not just our modern concept of the meaning is important. The channels of our subtle energy body are formed by the syllables of the languages we speak. And if you're a native speaker, that language is the deepest one in there. So actually, if you don't speak, read, understand Tibetan, if you don't have it in your channels, then when you're reading the transliteration, it doesn't work in you quite the same way that someone who's built of that does. And it also doesn't do what reading it in English does. Reading it in English shakes your channels in a different way. It's not that you don't get something from reading the Tibetan, you do, because there's an interdependence, and the main thing is your intention. But I think we're stuck with both languages for the time being, particularly with this kind of practice where the melodies in Tibetan and the terma is so fresh, the lineage is so close. Question?
So there's two questions. One is, Lama John, can you please say the mantras at a medium speed so we can get the pronunciation?
Page 8. So if you knew Sanskrit, you would say, Om Vajra Krodi Kali Bam Hari Nisa Sarva Papam Shantim Kuruye Svaha. But Tibetans don't say that. Tibetans say Om Benzar or Om Bajra occasionally, but they really say Om Benzar. Krodi Kali Bam Hari Nisa Sarva Papam Shantim Kuruye Soha. Was that slow enough? Yeah. And the Vajra, actually, there's no Indian around who says Vajra. They say Wajra or Bajra. Wajra or Bajra. Or Wazra or Basra, depending on what part of India and South Asia they're from. And here it's Om Vajra Varahi Bam Harinisa Sarva Papam Shantim Kuruye Swaha. Om Benzar Varahi Bam Harinisa Sarva Papam Shantim Kuruye Soha. Om Vajra Samanta Badra Om Dharmakaya Samati Siddhi Ah. Om Benzar Samanta Badra Om Dharmakaya Samadhi Siddhi Ah. Did the person, I guess they must have heard, all must have heard me in the morning. There's this ambiguity. It's in the Samati and it's also the Samanta Bhadra. It's the Golok version of transcribing the da as a ta, which wasn't corrected. So it's really Om Vajra Samanta Bhadra. But I have to put that's the sound, but I have to write, I'm not going to change the letter in transcription that's written there in the Terma text. Om Vajra Samanta Bhadra Om. Om Benzar Samanta Bhadra Om. And here Dharmakaya Samadhi Siddhi Dharmakaya Samadhi Siddhi right? And so you string it together. Om Benzar Samanta Bhadra Om Dharmakaya Samadhi Siddhi Om Benzar Samanta Bhadra Om Dharmakaya. And then it's Guru Hari Nisa Siddhi Hum. Guru Hari Nisa Siddhi Hum. Or Guru Hari Nisa Siddhi Hum. Hum or Hum.
Thank you, Lama John. And then the next question is, once we have read the visualization section, and I think they're probably talking about during the 3 Kaya Dakinis, is it important to read it every time we do the practice, or can we just spend a moment to bring the visualization to mind?
You got to read it. You need to read the whole practice from beginning to end in one language or the other. And if you've really trained yourself in the visualization, then you read it quickly, especially when you read it quickly in English, when you understand, as you read it, it all pops up. That's how you want to train yourself to visualize. So it's not that, oh, I'm reading, I can't visualize, and now I have to visualize, or I'm visualizing, I can't read. And when it gets loaded in there, it just sort of happens. It's like at the beginning when you're driving a car, you're thinking about it so much and you're tight, or you're riding a bike, right? But later you're driving the car and you're doing your mala and listening to the radio and talking on your phone all at the same time, right? And eating a cheeseburger. One way or the other, you'll end up in the hospital if you do that. So that's the questions. Mateus.
I just want to check if the melody that we just sang on page 21 for dedication is the same melody for the aspiration prayer on page 22.
There's no melody for the aspiration prayer.
Okay.
Sometimes I've often done, and people sometimes do, the standard aspiration melody. But actually, I've looked at tapes of Dudjin Rinpoche and talked to some of his old students, and they used to just do that in a regular voice. So you can, there's a standard aspiration melody. Oh, Lama Yumchen Lazo Dala Gon Dende Dube Gewe Rabzunte Dusum Sayu Sunam Chijiba Kagel Dunam Chanchu Dundu. 4 lines, 4 lines, 4 lines. And that's the standard aspiration melody in the Nyingma tradition. And it's nice because everybody sticks together and you sort of remember things that way when you have that melody with the verse. And you can do that. But actually, the original way is just to read it. It's read in Tibetan.
Can you just comment on the page 28, the song of the awareness holders, the rivals, the melody of Brahma, called The Laughter That Pleases the Dakinis. Do you have any advice about that? Should we just read it? Or?
Okay, so this is,
Thank you.
I should teach for 2 or 3 days just on this commentary at one time. I included it because it's not so easy to understand the aspiration prayer. So when I went to Soksi Rinpoche and said, I got to learn this, I want to learn Troma, and I kept bugging him about it, I told you this story. He sent me to Lama Chime Dorje, who was one of the main lineage holders of the Troma among Dudjin Rinpoche's students. And so I studied the melodies, I studied everything with Lama Chime, and I came back and saw him over and over again over the years. And one time I came to see him, he gave me this. Basically, when he was with Dudjom Rinpoche in Kalimpong, he asked Dudjom Rinpoche, this aspiration prayer you composed is actually, there's a lot of complicated stuff in there that's not so easy to understand for beginners. Can you give me a teaching explaining it? And he took notes on the teaching. At the end, he asked Dudjom Rinpoche, please write up a commentary because it'll really help beginners on the path. And Dudjom Rinpoche was very busy in those days. He said, I don't have time, but you go ahead, you write up your notes into a commentary. And of course, Lama Chime was a yogi. He was hardly educated in a normal scholastic way. He was an amazing yogi. And he spent his life into practice. He used to get up at 1 in the morning. Even if he's drinking beer till 11 or 12, he'd get up at 1 in the morning and do his practice. Into his 70s, 80s, 90s. Unbelievable. Unbelievable amount of practice he did. And good signs when he passed. And he made a toku. He wasn't a toku, he made a toku. His toku is about 3.5 years old now. So he had a student who was in the 90s who was a Kempo, who was very well educated, and he said, help me write up these notes because it'll help beginners. And it's wonderful because it not only makes sense of the prayer, which explains the path of trauma and some of the different practices, but it goes into Samaya in more detail and makes sense of all that. And so it's sort of like, maybe not Vajrayana 101, but Vajrayana 102. Like the teaching yesterday was 101. It's a little bit more detailed. A little bit more like what you crack your heads against in the commentaries on the 3 vows and things in the more scholastic tradition, but just enough for practitioners to really understand a lot of basic concepts. And so I included it with this translation. This is like, for the first year or 2 you're studying this practice, you've got everything you need in here. You just need to dig into it, maybe with supplementary materials. So it would be good to do a teaching on this at some point. It goes over what the Vajrabhati is, what the path is, the various samayas. I think I gave a teaching about a year ago. We went through the 14 samayas very quickly. Those of you with more of a Dharma education can read it and study it. There's no reading transmission, actually. That's why I didn't include the Tibetan. There's not actually a reading transmission. It's good, basic Vajrayana material to have a deeper understanding. And if it seems hard to understand or technical, it is a little bit. But once it's explained, it's not, not so hard. So sometime we'll do a little more teaching on that. Samaya, there's so many ways to approach Samaya. And we talked about that a little bit yesterday. You can think of Samaya as a set of rules, words of honor, but it's words of honor, sacred. I like sacred commitment because it's more than just, I'm going to abide by these rules. It's a commitment to a way of life that holds something. There's something held there. There's an energy. That's the vessel that holds this wisdom energy from the lineage. And the guru and the disciple are holding it together. And all the assembly of disciples, we're all holding it together. It's not just guru and disciple, all the Vajra brothers and sisters. If we all can practice pure perception, we lift each other up. And if we get into negativity and very ordinary dualistic aggression and aversion, we can pull everybody down. And this system of 3 vows, the vows of the individual liberation according to the Hinayana, the precepts of training in bodhicitta according to the Mahayana and then the sacred commitments of the Vajrayana, it all seems very kind of technical and abstruse. All these rules are ways of training. It's a way of training. You make a commitment as a way of training, and it deepens your understanding. That's what it's about. It's a way of training ourselves. I think that's a little alien to us in our culture, but not to many religious traditions. It's very similar, for example, in Orthodox Judaism. Fully ordained monk has 253 vows. But in Orthodox Judaism, there's actually over 500 for somebody who's completely practicing. And it makes a way of life. And the sake of the Samaya, even if the Samaya is about maintaining the sacred view and the sacred presence of the practice in everything. Not just practice, the practice of what really is, bringing ourselves into that. And at the beginning, we're up in our heads about it, and it seems artificial. But once we get even a little bit of taste of the inner guru, then it really starts to make more sense.
Lama John, I have a question about the accumulations. So last time I wrote down, maybe wrongly, that the accumulations would be 100,000 prostrations with refuge and bodhicitta. So you do one prostration, 8 lines?
Yes.
Okay. And then...
Which I was trying to say loudly here. I don't know if it got through on the mic to the cloud or... Yeah, but there's 8 lines, 4 lines down and 4 lines up.
Good, okay. Yeah, we heard, it was good, helpful. And then 100,000 mandala,
Yes.
the usual way. And then the 3 dakinis, 100,000 of each mantra. So you have a total of 700,000, is that?
Well, 100,000 of Om Benzer Kuri Kali Bam Harnisa Sawa Pabam Shantam Kuriye. So 100,000 of Om Benzer Wadari Bam Harnisa Sawa Pabam divided into the 2 visualizations, but 100,000, and then 100,000 of Om Benzer Samanta Bhadra Om Dharmakaya Samadhi Siddhi.
Okay.
Right, correct.
Right.
And then you need the Guru Yoga.
Guru Yoga, that was my last question.
Usually it would be good to do at least 10 times 100,000.
And that's the
Guru
Guru mantra?
Guru Harinisa Siddhi.
Oh, yeah, okay.
It's actually only 9 syllables. Vajra Guru is 12.
Okay,
Goes faster.
that's the part I misunderstood. Thank you.
Yeah, and at least 10 times 100,000, right? 100,000 for each syllable plus 1. But better if you could do like 20, 30, 50 times 100,000, or if you can do 100 and a little extra, 113 times 100,000. Really good. And in the old days, sometimes they did more of the 3 kayas dakinis. 300,000 of each you can do, if you want to. So this practice, instead of, it may be that you finish your numbers and then you're living a life where I can't take a month off or several months off for retreat right now, but I'm doing my practice every day. You can really dig into this practice. In the old days in Tibet, people would dig into the Ngondro. They'd do a lot of the 3 dakinis, and they'd do a lot of the Guru Yoga. And there's tremendous benefit in that. And then you mix it with your meditation. And then later, if you have a chance to do a few months on strict retreat, great. The more of this you do, the easier it'll be. And if you don't, everything's here. And also with the 3 kayas dakinis, you can do a 1-week wandering practice in the mountains, or you can do a closed retreat for a week or a month. which is very similar to the full-on creation stage retreat, but a little bit less ritual difficulties to it. The practice part is pretty much the same, but you don't have to do the strict inner retreat with all the ritual restrictions and boundaries. And you can do a lot of guru yoga. So you can really get a lot out of this. And this could be your practice for the rest of your life, and nothing's incomplete, even without all of these amazing other things that are out there in the universe of trauma. Okay, so it's 4 o'clock. Got a half an hour to pick my brain, or I can just keep talking. I can give you a chance to, did anybody have a desperate need to take a bathroom break?
Thank you so much. I wonder if you could actually say a word or two about mantra practice itself, like the physical, what is the breathing, how do we hold our mind, how do we hold our body, what is the, I don't want to say goal, but do you get what I'm asking?
Yeah. There are many ways of reciting mantras. At the beginning, we want to do what's called vocal recitations. Later, you can do mental recitations or various other kinds of recitations. And when you start with the mantra, you want to say it very clearly. But as you get used to it, it becomes quieter and quieter and easier to say it more quickly. There's kind of a Goldilocks zone where it's not too fast and not too slow. If you go too fast, not only will you make mistakes, but you'll stir up your subtle energies. Everybody's got their own speed. And most people push themselves a little bit. There's two issues. One is speed and the other is tension. And also, if you go too slow, you can get distracted and make mistakes. So there's you have to find the right speed so that it flows. It's not too fast, not too slow. It's clearly enunciated. And after you've done a few thousand or 10,000 or 100,000, it's easy to say it very quickly without missing anything. And sometimes that happens very quietly. Actually, general teachings on saying mantras, peaceful mantra, you say it just loud enough that you could hear it at about, what do we say? Knees, shoulders, collar. You know, maybe like knees, I'm trying to remember that, knees, shoulders, collar. Yeah. It's about, maybe like an arm's length away. You couldn't hear it unless you're really close. And then an increasing mantra, you couldn't hear it beyond your knees. I may have this wrong, but the basic idea is like this. I'd have to look at the text. And then a magnetizing mantra, you can't hear it past your shoulders. And a wrathful mantra, you couldn't hear it past your collar. It's even quieter, the wrathful mantra. So it doesn't make much noise at all. And in fact, people who are really used to reciting mantras, there's a little movement of the tongue and mouth, but very, very little. And it's very relaxed, and very, very little breath is required. But it's very clear. But that's after thousands or millions of mantras kind of programmed into you. At the beginning, you just want to go, Om Mam Benzer Guru Pema Siddhi Hum. Om Ma Hum Benzer Guru Pema Siddhi Om Ma Hum Benzer Guru. You want to hear it. It needs to be all very clear. But the less effort you put into it and the more relaxed you are and the less wind you push and the less muscle you push, the less disturbing it is, actually. If you put too much effort, you're too tight, it'll stir up your subtle energy. The same thing with visualization. If you mentally hold too hard to an image, particularly if you're visualizing things inside your heart, it'll really disturb your winds, your subtle energies. So you'd have to be, non-distracted, but very gentle. The whole thing, your practice ought to be gentle. Your body ought to be gentle. Your breath ought to be gentle. Your intention. It's not like a wrestling match or running a sprint. It's more like Tai Chi. You're just floating there. And it's very natural and relaxed. You always want to be natural, relaxed, and open, even when you're concentrating doing this. There's so much to learn at the beginning. You couldn't imagine being relaxed and open. But it gets programmed in, and then you can sit there all day with all this stuff, and you just sort of let go, and then the whole thing opens up. Your view, your meditation will open up. With mantra practice, generally speaking, it's tied to visualization. And so we want the visualization to be vivid, clear. But we also don't want to hold on to it too tightly, and we don't want to think that it's something real and solid. All these visualizations of devata bodies, of mantras, it's wisdom light form, appearing yet non-existent, without any inherent nature, and yet manifesting naturally. And then various practices is very specific, teachings on how to visualize. Like here in the 3 Dakini section, we're visualizing the blue hung in Troma's heart. I think it's on top of, I have to look at the commentary again. I don't know if it says in here. Yes. In my heart with an adjoined sun and moon amulet is the dark blue letter Hum. So in that vast expanse of blue-black light of the nature of reality shimmering with rainbow rays inside that tiny amulet of a sun and moon inside your heart is this blue Hum, sort of written front to back like that. And then the mantra is arranged around it. So the mantra is arranged Om Ben Zar Krodi Kali Pam Hari Nisa Sawa Pabam Shantim Kuriya Soa, facing in with the Om facing in the east, in front. Now in this practice, that mantra just stays there in space and sits still, and light emanates out and comes back. In some practices, that chain of mantra syllables will start to move and circle around, or another chain will come out of it and move through the first chain, or come up through the mouth and circle around. All kinds of things can happen. But here's pretty simple. This is first when you visualize that garland of mantra syllables is called like a Dawi Odring, like a rosary of moonlight. And then when the light emanates making offerings, and then comes back and emanates transforming everyone into devatas and everything into the pure realm and comes back. That's called like a king's messenger. It's a style of mantra recitation. And there's more detail. Is everybody familiar in the long commentary, Dujun Rinpoche Chud? There's sections which go into quite a little bit more detail on this, but just, you can start by following the visualizations in the text itself and then add on to it with that. And we want to it's always this constant balance between trying too hard, getting too uptight, concentrating too hard, and just relaxing. And sometimes if you've been really working to make your visualization vivid and fresh and clear for a long time, you get tired, then just let go and meditate. You do the mantra and you just let go. And then you come back and you do a really clear visualization. You can alternate like that. Does that answer your question? Is that helpful? And the other thing is mantra. Everything is made of mantra. We just don't see it that way. Our subtle energy bodies are made of mantra. Everything. And if you see a really realized being, they don't see you like I see you and you see me. They see a heap of mantras. What's that? Yeah. Well, the heaps of impure, the 5 aggregates, those heaps, that's the impure phenomena, right? Not the pure phenomena. Any other questions?
So with the 4 empowerments on the 3rd pet, I'm having a hard time figuring out what I'm supposed to be visualizing there.
It's more like an intention. Okay, this
Right.
word visualize, first of all, is not a good word, because it's not, the word in Tibetan is mikpa. It really means to like imagine. Imagine. So when you're taking the 4 empowerments, the first one, the light comes down into you. And the second one, it spreads out through the channels or through the mixing with the subtle energy or mixing with the bindu essential drops.
I have no idea what that means. Like, am I just guessing?
Okay. Thank you. So we have we identify very strongly with this gross physical body. And this is one of the things that's explained in the commentary, the Vajra body with the 6 elemental bases, We have this gross elemental body, but we also have a subtle energy body. And the way that's understood in the tantric tradition is as channels, winds, and essential drops. Sa lung tigle. There's so many ways to think about a channel. You can think about a channel like a pipe or a tube, but you can think about a channel like a symbolic representation of movement. It's really not like a solid pipe or a tube. It's a zone. And usually the way we visualize that, the channels, these channels are actually the basis for our life. I mentioned this earlier. When the sperm enters the egg and the genetic materials join, and that's thought of as there's what's carried there is the essential drops from the father and mother. On a subtle energy level, there's a bindu essential drop, one each from the father and mother that join, and the white drop from the father and the red drop from the mother join, and that creates something that a consciousness can enter into. When a woman and a man are making love, there are countless disembodied consciousnesses hanging around, just racing for a body, just like those sperms racing for an egg, and it's all karma. But we're attracted. It's very interesting. The way this is explained is usually if the consciousness that has the karma to be sucked in and become that child is more attracted to the mother, sexually attracted to the mother in the act of intercourse, aroused by that, they take a male form. And if the consciousness is attracted to that act of intercourse and more sexually attracted to the father, then the child takes the female form. And this tantric physiology actually explains this whole ancient Greek mythology mythology about Oedipus and Ophelia and the whole Freudian psychology stuff. It's based on physiology. And then when the drops join and the consciousness enters, the first thing that happens in the embryo is the development of a central channel. After there's just a very small number of cells, and this is what actually happens. You can see it in modern physiology. And that central tube, and that holds the central drops separate. So while we're alive, that white drop from the father and that red drop from the mother are held at opposite ends of the central channel. When you die, it will collapse together in your heart, and there's certain visions associated with that. And then all of this gross consciousness dissolves. So if you have enough of a confident recognition of your true nature, of the Dharmakaya Dakini, of the Buddha nature, of the way it really is in this life from your practice, then it's kind of like catching a wave at the time of death, you know. All of the gross and subtle defilements collapse into the Dharmakaya ground. And if you've recognized it before, you can remain in that and become enlightened, even if you can't do it in this lifetime. And that's really the most common way people are successful as practitioners. They may not have completely integrated their view with their practice during this life, but they've worked hard at it and purified obscuration, had enough merit and good samaya, a connection with the lineage, and then they've had glimpses. And some of those, to the point where from time to time they really get it, and they have confidence about that. Then when you die, at that moment, there'll be signs. Usually people remain in meditation. The heart stops, the breath stops, but the body doesn't decompose. And there's all sorts of signs that happen depending on the realization. Sometimes when they burn the bodies, relics come out of the bones and so on and so forth. But anyway, so that those drops are separated. And as the channel system develops, there's the main central channel, and then there's two side channels. And we think of them as solar and lunar channels. And they're reversed in men and women. And different tantras give slightly different explanations of this. And then there are various knots in the channels. And around each of those knots, between the three main channels, there's a channel wheel, which is called a chakra. Everybody's heard about chakras? That's what a chakra is. So that's the channel system of the subtle energy body. And it's like the subtle nervous system. It's how the mind is connected to the physical body. And that forms in utero. And as we grow older, it kind of atrophies. But in this context, the Vajra body doesn't atrophy. There's a pure that subtle energy system becomes the vessel to hold what's called the Vajra body, the pure wisdom energy. So you've got the channel system, and then you've got wind, movement, communication happening along these channels. And then you've got essence, which are these essential drops, which start with what you get from your mother and father, and then as you grow are multiplied. And these essential drops are held at various points around the channel system. So on a relative level, these are thought of as these sort of essence of the life force, a life essence. And if we have more of it, the more our channels are filled with these kind of essential drops, the more bliss we experience and the more health and vitality we have on the relative level. But the absolute bindu, the absolute drops, there's no increase or decrease. It's ultimate. That's the real Vajra body. So when you do mantras and various kinds of yoga, and even some kinds of foods and medicine, it can increase the relative bindus. And that helps our mind become more workable and can inspire experiences of bliss, meditative concentration. But the ultimate bindu doesn't even really depend on that. It's just a view. We're using, it's the same idea in the sutras. We accumulate relative merit. And based on that, we can eventually realize the ultimate view. Well, here, when we're thinking in terms of the tantric physiology, there's a relative way to look at this subtle energy body, and then there's an ultimate way. And mantras, prayer, visualization, that's all relative practice. You're using mind. The ultimate practice goes beyond that, but we have to make our minds workable so they get out of the way, so that we can really connect at the Dzogchen level with the ultimate Vajra body, which is beyond corruption and enhancement. Is that help? Is that complete enough? Keep picking my brain.
No, that helps a lot. It's just a lot to take in for someone from a Western medical background, for me, as myself.
Yeah. Have you ever done like Tai Chi or acupuncture, that kind of?
Yeah, I do a lot of acupuncture in my practice, but so I think of it that way, but I don't have a great understanding of how you're supposed to do that properly either. I mean, we're trained as Western
Got it, yeah.
medicine practitioners here. So.
This is, it's interesting, there's many similarities between the Buddhist, Hindu, Taoist traditions on this tantric physiology, but even in the different tantras, there's slight variations. And there's different ways of looking at it. If you think about it philosophically, because you're trained in Western medicine, you had some basic physics. So you know, like from a quantum physics point of view, is an electron a particle or is an electron a wave? Yes, it's both, depending on how what kind of problem you want to solve. You work the equations one way or the other. But what is it really? Who knows? Yeah, and it's a projection. It's a very useful projection. And in similar ways, these different channel systems are projections. Ultimately, they don't exist. But this is the, ultimately, our sense of me here and you there doesn't exist either. But it's a more subtle projection than our physical bodies. But it's really the energetic basis upon which this stuff functions. And if you continue with some of these practices, you start to feel things in your own body. And it's based on the way we're manipulating the subtle energy body. And the ultimate practice is when you really work at the mind level, it transforms everything. But at the beginning, we go step by step. The regular system of Tantra, we're working with mantra, visualization. We're basically purifying this subtle energy body. And that transforms our perceptions. That's how it's understood in the tradition. It's it's a dimension in between mind and body. And it is very different than Western science.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And there's all sorts of books to look at this stuff. If you do look into various books on this from the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, other traditions, I guarantee you it's easy to thoroughly confuse yourself because different tantras give slightly different variations. The solar channel is here or here, and it's reversed in women. In some practices, we visualize the central channel starting at the navel and going up to the top of the other channels. At times it's longer. We visualize the side channels or not, depending on the practice, the context. This is also true in Chinese medicine with acupuncture. I'm actually trained as a Chinese acupuncturist, herbalist. And the way we're trained to think about it is closer to this kind of, and one of the things about Chinese medicine is so interesting. You pick your theoretical paradigm for each patient. It is not like one way it is. And actually, that's the way the world is, right? Einstein said that the theory determines what you see. Yeah.
John, I have a question about visualization and emanation.
Emanation.
Emanation. I've read that when the Dojin Rinpoche's School of the Fundamentals of Nyingma School, the fundamentals of the big, well, anyways, emanation and visualization are both terms that are used within. What's the difference?
Okay. So usually visualization is used to translate this term mikvah. Mikvah actually means point of reference, literally. A mikvah is a point of reference. But when it's used as a verb, it generally, the best English translation is imagine. Somehow it's always been translated as visualize. It's not just your visual faculties. If you read some of these descriptions of the Pure Realm, you're supposed to be using all 5 sense consciousnesses. And for example, when we take the 4 empowerments, we imagine a visual image of this white light coming into our forehead and then spreading out through the channels with the second pet. How do you visually imagine? How do you visualize that it becomes the same as the body of all the Buddhas, as Buddha body? You imagine that. It's an intention, but that's also mikvah, visualization. And so emanation is different. Usually when we say emanation, we mean Nirmanakaya or Tulku. So we're either talking about the form body of the Buddha, or we're talking about, in one context or another, or we're talking about some person who incarnated as an emanation of a great master. Does that help?
Yes, it does. But also, you read about that some of the great masters see the emanation of Padmasambhava for a week, and that's the type of emanation that you're talking about?
Oh, well, no, sometimes they see, like Dujum Rinpoche was considered to be an emanation of Tulku, of Dujum Lingpa, also of Shariputra, of Saraha. Some people said he's considered the representative of Guru Padmasambhava. So Dujum Rinpoche met Guru Padmasambhava's Yeshiku, primal knowing body. It's a little bit different than emanation. And sometimes emanation is referring to Nirmanakaya, like Shakyamuni Buddha is considered a Nirmanakaya, an emanation form of the Buddha. But the Buddha himself, he said, in the Prajnaparamita Sutras, in the 8,000 verse Prajnaparamita, he says, those of you who have seen me as a form or heard me as a sound do not know the actual Buddha. The actual Buddha is Dharmakaya, the true body. Right?
Thank you.
Yeah. It's 4:30. So, thank you to all of you. I think we should do a good aspiration prayer. Maybe we'll do Lama Yumchen, that aspiration prayer at the end. No, in the trauma. And most of you have my email. If you don't, you can get it from Jim and Jen. If questions come up, don't hesitate to contact me. And just remember how fortunate we are. Page 22. We can do this in English. Ho, Great Mother Guru, Devata Assembly, please heed me. As so excellently symbolized by the merit accomplished here and now, whatever merit has been accumulated throughout the 3 times, I dedicate to the awakening of all beings throughout space. In each and every lifetime, obtaining a Vajra body of the supreme lineage of the Great Secret, endowed with the 6 good fortunes, without aspiring to the extremes of possibility or peace, may I enter this path of the wondrous vehicle. Hiruka without rival, Dujum Lingpa, never separating from you, supreme sufficient refuge, primordially one taste within the nature of self-awareness. Please plant realization within my heart, perfectly entering the unexcelled mandala of the 4 Vajras, ripening my mind stream with the ritual of the 4 empowerments. According to the renowned sacred commitments of the Vajra Dakinis, may I be able to protect them without fault. The primal, complete creation stage of appearance and possibility rising up as the basis, and the completion stage of naturally self-accomplished spheres of luminosity. This supreme secret unity is the critical point of the Vajra summit. May I enjoy the path of the treasury of the inner expanse of space. Loving to all without attachment to any, relying on and consuming great meat, the elixir of wisdom, with regalia of disciplined conduct, with song and dance and desirables, may I take cruel, raging, rushing, and jumping conduct to the limit, to be challenged by the impossible and cutting the bonds, reversing attachment from deep within, cutting the thread of subtle pride that is grasped onto as so precious. With the ultimate offering of my body and the Dharma, may I liberate the devas and demons and all sentient beings of appearance and possibility. Any and all deluded appearances, phenomenal consciousness, exhausted into the inexpressible expanse of the actual nature. In this very life, may I actually attain the magical Buddha body of primal knowing, the rainbow body free from obscuration. And if my enthusiasm and ability to become familiar and gain mastery is not adequate, if I don't reach the consummation of the path in this life, at the time of death, my meditative absorption persisting, in the unwavering state of Buddha mind, may I pass on. Self-appearance becoming the gathering of heroes and dakinis, escorting me with music, song, and dance, to the joyous pure realm, unexcelled active space, may I meet the Guru, the source of the mandala. The unobstructed aspect of appearance is the Hiruka, the supreme skillful means. Within great emptiness, the space of wrathful mother, the queen of the fundamental space of wisdom. Their union is great bliss, primal knowing, pervading space. May I achieve the unity of a victorious Vajra holder. Are people aching to go, or can I teach you the melody on page 27? This is really wonderful. Here's what it means. Embodiment of all the Buddhas, root guru. From my 3 doors with great respect I pray. The primordial actual state recognizing itself, grant your blessings that my life and my practice be the same. Sangye kundo tsawe lama lago sungge ba chenpe soade de mene lorango shepa ru tse dan rupa nyambar jingilo sangye gundu tsawe lama lago sungge ba chenpe soade de mene lorango shepa ru tse dan rupa nyambar jingilo sangye kundu tsawe lama la shimbu soade. De me ne lorango shepa ru sedan rubanyamba chingilo. I wrote this third line. It almost works in English. Kind rude guru, all the Buddhas face, 3 doors reverently I pray to you. Primal way knowing its own face, life and practice equal, grant your grace. That third line, some little curve is wrong there with the melody. It's very close. Kind root guru, all the Buddhas face, 3 doors reverently I pray to you. Primal way knowing its own face, life and practice equal, grant your grace. If somebody can figure out how to help me with the third line, then I think we're pretty close. It's really hard doing this in English. Om Yahom Benza Guru Pema Siddhi Om Yahom Benza Guru Pema Siddhi O Yahom Benza Guru Pema Siddhi. So you all are holding inconceivable treasures, really. It doesn't get better. It's right here. And now you can own it. Make it your own. I'll be back. So thank you all. And be well.
Thank you so much, Lama John, and we request you to return and continue giving us teachings as soon as possible, and we'll work out the dates. And so a couple announcements before everybody leaves. Okay, a couple things. One is, Rinpoche has arrived in Denver safely. He's resting and getting over jet lag, and he said that he will come to our book group. So normally we have book group on Tuesday nights from 6:30 until 8. And so we're studying The Words of My Perfect Teacher. Do you remember off the top of your page what page? Page 177, and it's starting to discuss refuge. And so it's a perfect time for Rinpoche to come and discuss refuge with all of us. So even if this is such a unique opportunity, so even if you haven't attended all the book groups before, if you have Tuesday night free, please come and join us. Again, that's 6:30 until 8. And then Rinpoche will be teaching this coming Thursday, and then we'll be releasing, he also said probably this Sunday, but we haven't firmed it up yet. So if you're not on our email list, I think everybody here is, but get on our email list, because as soon as we have the schedule, we'll send it out. And I also wanted to mention, maybe I missed it when you were talking before earlier, but the commentary that Lama John was referring to, we have it in the bookstore. I think most people bought it before. At the end of it, the Heart Essence of Saraha, I found really useful if Lama John's not around right here to ask questions, because it goes through all the visualizations. And it's only like 20 or 30 pages long. So
So at the end of that long book, Dujum Lingpa's Chud, the heart essence of Saraha, that's the root text of the vision from Saraha to Dujum Lingpa. And then that whole book is a commentary written by the main holder of the Tromo lineage, who was commanded by Dujum Lingpa to write a detailed commentary, Puktrul, not Puktrul, Lingtrul Pema Lungto Gyatso. And he was this incredibly learned, realized master. And in the book, in the commentary, you get both Dujum Lingpa's own oral commentary to Pema Lungto Gyatso, and then Pema Lungto Gyatso goes to sutras, goes to tantras, goes to many sources, and gives very detailed background on the whole thing. But yeah, that's the root text, which in Tibetan is about 50 some odd folios. You know, folio is a two-sided page. And then the commentary is 350 folios, a very extensive commentary. So a lot of that commentary is hard to digest, but even just the visualization sections, flag those sections. And yeah, go ahead, read the treasure. In the old days in Tibet, to get the transmission of that root treasure, the heart essence of Saraha, first you had the empowerment, and then you committed yourself to doing the Ngondro and the creation stage retreat and wandering for 100 days before you got the teachings. So you guys, you think we're giving you a hard time? You got it easy.
we have it in the bookstore. So thank you again, John. Thanks, everyone. If everyone can help clean up and get ready, so keep the place clean.